The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah! Go Cowboys!
Let's go, baby!
Are you ready for a break?
Yes.
Are you ready for a break?
Absolutely.
Ready for a break?
Yeah, and so much for that.
It's time for The Break on DallasCowboys.com
We were on the break!
with Ambar Garcia, Brian Broaddus, Patrick Walker, and Derek Eagleton.
It is Tuesday, September 12th, 2023, season 19, episode number 29. Welcome to the latest edition of The Break. We are live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. Amber's not joining us today, but we got the other three of us in studio. We'll have lots to talk about today. We're going to do a little stroll around the NFL and the NFC East particularly. We got some player evaluations that we didn't get to yesterday of a few players that had some games, some good games, some that we probably will talk a little bit about that maybe you want to see a little bit more from. We'll talk about that in the second segment. And, of course, in the third segment, we got our regular mainstay on Tuesdays, Lab Koat with no C. We'll get into that in the third segment. So let's get this thing rolling. Let's first talk about the NFL and a story that really has transcended football to some degree. I got a little push notification from CNN, and my wife said at the same time she was getting a push notification from TMZ. Tells you a lot about our worlds, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's what, and they were all talking about Aaron Rodgers being gone. He's gone with an Achilles injury. I'll throw it up to you guys to get your opinions, but I'll just say, first of all, last night I would assume I'm not the only one that just felt almost like a gut punch, even though you're not a Jets fan. You kind of wanted to see how this thing was going to play out and certainly didn't want to, 4 plays into the season, figure out that he's not going to be there anymore. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought that Robert Saleh post-game handled it very well. When you listen to his comments, my experience working in this league, and Patrick, you're new to being in the NFL, but Derek, I know you've been here a long time as well. The thing is, nobody feels sorry for you.
I have no doubt about that.
And nobody feels sorry for you, when injuries like this happen. It's and I think Robert Saleh sent the right message to his team. Don't feel sorry for me. Don't feel sorry for this team. Feel sorry for Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, and we could all feel that way. But in the NFL, you look at it and you go, well, that's an injury. We've been so conditioned to Jason Garrett's next man up philosophy, but that's how you have to live in the National Football League. There's sure they moved on. They moved on from Zach Wilson. They picked Zach Wilson second overall. That's the thing they have to repair now. Yeah, they have to fix Aaron Rodgers, but they have to fix Zach Wilson here. So if you're the Jets, that should be your focus. But I'm looking at it like, you know what? It's part of what that's what we deal with here in the NFL. Yeah. That's when you sit in those chairs, there's a potential that you might not walk out of this hole with your football team. And now the Jets, and they've got a good team. The Jets have got some skill guys. We'll talk about that this week. This will be a difficult game for the Cowboys. But this is also the side of me. It's like, you know what? Now you're really going to see what the New York Jets are all about. Mm-hmm. Can they withstand a massive loss to their team and be able to be better for it? We'll see.
It's one of those situations where, I've been covering the NFL for about 10 years, and I've been an NFL fan all my life. And I harken back to my childhood, and you see players like Joe Montana go to Kansas City. Then you fast forward and you see, Brett Favre go to the Jets, Tom Brady go to Tampa Bay, and now Aaron Rodgers go to New York. Whenever you have those future first ballot Hall of Famers make those changes, and we'll stick to quarterback because you could talk about Emmitt Smith, but that's PTSD. We don't want to do that. But when you talk about these future first ballot Hall of Fame quarterbacks making these changes and all of the pomp and circumstance and hype that builds up to it, this arguably, or maybe even without argument, was one of the more hyped up off seasons for this type of change in the NFL. So then we only get 4 snaps of Aaron Rodgers. He was pressured on 2 of them. It was almost 2 sacks. The one that was a sack by Leonard Floyd unfortunately ended his season, which then brings question marks on did it end his career? We'll see, what the future holds for Aaron Rodgers. But I'm with Brian 100%. From inside the locker room, you can't feel sorry for yourself as a team. You can't get down on yourself. So credit to the Jets defense for stepping up and continuing to play. Credit to Zach Wilson for stepping in and at least not giving the game away. He had the touchdown to Garrett Wilson. But that all goes to the leadership of Robert Saleh, who's just a magnificent leader of men. But you think about it also from the capacity of a fan, and you really have to feel like all the air went out of the room if you were a Jets fan. And granted, the Cowboys are going to go up against the Jets, and you have that friendly banter, competition, things of that nature. But I find it difficult to not feel badly for the Jets fans because they've been waiting so long. You're talking about the Cowboys, but the Cowboys have 5 rings, and we're waiting for the drought to end. But a lot of us have at least felt that. The Jets, Joe Namath.
Yeah.
I mean, how
6 years old when that happened.
So that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So
You were 6 years old.
Yeah. So this, as a Jets fan, is devastating. It's crushing. Bittersweet evening. They were able to finish it on a high note, but to get the confirmation this morning and to see it happen in real time, I mean, you had to feel like your heart got ripped out of your chest for those Jets fans.
Yeah, it's interesting because as someone who wants to see the Cowboys do well, when he first went down, I'm like, high ankle sprain? Like I'll take a high ankle sprain just so we don't have to play him. But I didn't want him to be down. Right. I wanted him to play this season because, I mean, as a football fan, you want to watch the best players play, right?
Right.
And so that's the part that's always disheartening this time of the year particularly is when you see really great players on any team go down. For your own selfish reasons, for whatever team you're rooting for, you kind of are like, well, we don't have to face them. But at the same time, it's football.
But then also here comes the asterisk if the Cowboys do what we expect them to do on Sunday afternoon. Now it's like, oh, well, it was against Wilson versus Aaron Rodgers. I go back to the same thing I felt going against Tom Brady going into the wild card game last year. I want to play these guys because I want to exorcise these demons. And that's another gut punch for me because I wanted to see Aaron Rodgers. I feel like this defense and even this offense was primed to finally get over that Aaron Rodgers hump, and we kind of got robbed of that.
Yeah.
Well, I think that if we could all go back and remember how we felt this time last year when Dak Prescott was dealing, we were trying to figure out, did he break his thumb? Did he break his hand? What happens here?
Yeah.
And now you're thinking, okay, here's Cincinnati and Joe Burrow coming to town in week 2. And you're thinking like, okay, I guarantee you, there were people, and you're right, in my timeline, there were people that were, this season's over.
Yeah.
This season's over. But look what happened. Look how well the defense picked things up, how well Cooper Rush played. It's, as an NFL fan, you should still have hope. You should still, if your team is good enough, and what we saw last night with the Jets, they're good enough. The team you might feel sorry for if you're into drafting is the Green Bay Packers. Because the Green Bay Packers were thinking they were going to get a first-round pick from Aaron Rodgers, and now they get a second-round pick.
Yeah.
So, with him not playing more than 70% of the games. So as a Packer fan and as a Packer organization, you're probably, damn, you're doing that. But as a whole, I think the Jets, I think the Jets could be very similar to what the Cowboys were last year. If they'll figure out a way to run the football, play within what they can do with, with their quarterback, with Zach Wilson, and their defense will find a way to shine.
Yeah, I think the worst thing the Cowboys can do at this point is to underestimate the Jets.
Not at all.
That defense
not
is
at
still
all.
way too talented. You do not want to underestimate a team that has a great defense because defense, as we know, it's said all the time, but it really is true. Defense does win championships. If you have a great defense, you can be in every single game, and all it takes is a play here, play there, and you can win that game, as we saw last night.
Well, and you saw Buffalo last night just turn the ball over.
Yeah,
and that ultimately led to the end of their opportunity to win the game. With this, but that's what the Jets do. The Jets, we'll get into them more this week, but they create opportunities and they will continue to find ways. And I think maybe the one thing for Zach Wilson, him working this summer with Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers at one time wasn't the most touchy-feely guy. He's not he wasn't, but he really did embrace Zach Wilson. And maybe Zach Wilson learned some things along the way here. And maybe his teammates will. But there's going to have to be some repair in the Jets organization when it comes to Zach Wilson. They did. They basically said, hey, we're going to go get Aaron Rodgers, and he is going to be our quarterback. So now it's a little bit about, okay, well, here we are. And Zach Wilson, I'm sure he's better prepared now than he was, if he was going to be the starter.
And I believe that to be the case as well. And we'll get into more of the Jets this week. But I was asked this morning on the Fan, will the Cowboys overlook the Jets now? And I don't believe that's going to, because that's not the culture in the locker room. But I will also say, for any fan that wants to suddenly overlook Zach Wilson and the Jets, inclusive of their defense, go back and look at last night's game.
Yeah.
Because Buffalo felt like once they knocked Rodgers out of the game, the game was in the bag at that point, if you're Buffalo, because your defensive front had been dominating their offensive line, so forth and so on. But then what happens? Josh Allen, one giveaway. Here's another giveaway. Here's another giveaway. Here's another giveaway. 4 giveaways on the night. Ends up being in overtime because you got stuck at 13 points. You had to muster 16, which was the field goal that got you there. And then you lose on the walk-off return for the touchdown. So any fan that's overlooking this Jets team needs to look no further than the psychology that the Buffalo Bills had when Aaron Rodgers went out and what happened after that. Mm-hmm. So as a fan, think of it from that capacity. As someone who's walking around this building with these players and these coaches, 100% guarantee you they're not overlooking anybody.
Let's flip the conversation to the NFC East. Cowboys tied with Philadelphia and Washington at 1-0 atop the division. Both Philly and Washington won this last weekend, although Philly did try to give that game away.
Twice.
Yeah, they did.
Twice.
Yeah, they did.
And
Bill Belichick,
New England just could not take it from them.
Patriots.
And Bill Belichick allowed it to happen, which is surprising.
Yeah.
To me, he went for it. There was 3 opportunities that the Patriots had to get points. And to give the Eagles defense a lot of credit on the final 3, the drive that they stopped them on 4th down, that turned the ball over. New England could have kicked the field goal there, could have taken the points, and then found a way with timeouts and time left, could have found a way to play defense. And ultimately, they got the ball back twice. Nick Sirianni gave it to him one time, could have punted the ball. And Mac Jones is not going to drive the ball the length of the field to get points. That's just not going to happen. So, but give the Eagles credit. They made 3 really good stops to win that football game.
And the Patriots, they should have capitalized. If they capitalize on that Jalen Hurts fumble, it's likely a different outcome of that game. Yeah. I mean, and Dan Quinn talks about it all the time. Mike McCarthy talks about it all the time. It's one thing to take the ball away, which is a huge plus. But what happens? What do you do with that takeaway after that? Is it a defensive touchdown, or does the offense go down and get points off of that? The Patriots ended up not getting anything out of that, and ultimately it came back to bite them in the end. But it was. Jalen Hurts didn't light up the scoreboard, and he had the fumble that was lost. And, you look at Gainwell, 54 yards rushing, which was the leader of the team. Anthony Brown and Devontae Smith, they had pretty solid games, 79 and 47 yards receiving respectively, but only 1 receiving touchdown between the 2 of them. So it was a game the Patriots could have won. And you look at the Eagles, and this is who you're going to go up against as far as trying to take the NFC East crown. Yeah. If you measure the Eagles' output or what the Eagles put on film against the Patriots versus what the Cowboys put on film against the Giants, you could rightfully lean right now. And this scale is, it's going to tip up and down as the season goes on. But right now, edge to the Cowboys, just in comparing film to film.
You look at the Giants, the only team in the division to lose, and lose in grand fashion, might I say, at the hands of the Cowboys. That being said, are the Giants as bad as what we saw the other night?
No.
No, I don't think so either. No. Go ahead, Patrick. You got it.
No, I was going to say absolutely not. Hashtag keep that energy is one of my main things. If we're going into this game constantly saying this New York Giants team is not a pushover, in this Daboll era, they've shown competitiveness. They've shown they can go out there and beat anyone you line them up against. But then they get basically mollywopped by the Cowboys, and now suddenly we're going to say, oh, well, they were never good in the first place. That's just not accurate assessment. What's the correct thing to say it would be is that the Cowboys were just that dominant. They were just that elite. The defense was simply that special on that particular evening, and the Giants had no answers for it. So they shrunk more and more as the game went along. I can guarantee you Daboll is going to get in that locker room, get in those meeting rooms, get on that practice field. You're probably not going to see the Giants get manhandled like that again at any point this year, because this serves as their wake-up call. But the Cowboys were the right team to serve that wake-up call.
Yeah, I feel like that if they go and lose to Arizona this week, if they continue to have problems with their offensive line, then you start to ask the questions. But yeah, there's some issues they have. They really do struggle turning people over. They got really no pass rush. There were questions about the Cowboys' offensive line, especially inside with Udoka. He answered the questions there.
Yes, he did.
There were things that the Giants just could not take advantage of. They didn't protect. They ran the ball initially well enough, then went completely away from it. So I think the Giants are going to need to go back to trying to being who they are. They've got to realize until they get their offensive lines solidified or at least going in the better direction, they're going to need to lean on Saquon Barkley running the ball and then sometimes Daniel Jones running the ball. Because if they're going to turn into just a team throwing the ball, and they do have better skilled people, they better find a way to protect. That is the biggest issue that the Giants have right now is their offensive line isn't good enough, but that's not a bad team by any means.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think ultimately, to me, that was a bit of a coaching fail in that game because I think I don't know if they panicked. I don't know if they just got away from the run just because they felt like they needed to throw the ball or wanted to throw the ball. But to me, I think what they showed in that first series and then to have, I think it was 2 or 3 more series where they didn't throw it. I mean, they didn't run at all. They were just throwing the ball.
The second series.
The
second series after the blocked field goal, they go 3 and out. And what did they do? They had an incomplete. Yep. They had a PBU by Wanye Thomas, and then they had a sack by Micah Parsons. And then that was the end of what we knew as the Giants offensively.
Right.
Yeah. They should have just said, okay, fine, we're down 6-0. Barkley for 5, Barkley for 6, Daniel Jones for 7. That's what they needed to get back to, and they lost their path on that.
And once you go down 2 touchdowns to the Cowboys, I think it becomes a very, very
you play right into their hands.
Yeah, you look at the Minnesota game. I don't think Minnesota was a bad. Minnesota was a good team last year,
they were.
But they got into a situation where they fell down. And they couldn't get back up because the defense, that's right where they want you. So I think, teams, hey, if I'm a coach from an opposing team, I don't care if I'm down 2 touchdowns, I'm still running the ball. I'm going to keep forcing the issue with the run to get myself back into the game. Because if I'm going to get into just passing down,
you're going to lose a game. You're going to lose a game if it turns.
You're going to get embarrassed.
Yeah, if it turns into a game where you constantly have to drop back and throw the ball against the Cowboys, you are going to find that you're going to probably lose that game. You're either going to
lose a quarterback.
You're going to maybe lose your quarterback, but you could probably even turn over the ball the way that these guys play in the second.
I equate this Cowboys defense to a boa constrictor. Okay, once they start, they'll wrap themselves around you, and then it's 3-point lead, 6-point lead. It gets tighter. You start to, your breaths get a little bit quicker. Not panicked yet, but you're like, okay, what's going on? This is what happened with the Giants. And then all of a sudden there's more points, and you can squeeze this more and more. You can't breathe. Suddenly it's 26-0 with 5 minutes left to play in the first half. Yeah. And now you're fighting for your life.
They're choking you out.
And they're choking you out. And then over the remaining course of the remaining 2.5 quarters, it's just constricted. And by the time you get to the top of the fourth quarter, they're dead. Yeah. They're done.
I think that's how the Jets are going to have to play the Cowboys. I think they're going to have to find a way to we get to that, the running aspect. But on the Cowboys on the flip side, you've got to make that quarterback try and score points. Mm-hmm. If you put pressure on him to have to score points, to Patrick's point, they're going to get choked out on that because they're not going to be able to score a lot of points with that quarterback right now, as is. But the Cowboys, that's going to be I think one of the keys is make the Jets have to play score for score with you, and I don't know if they can do that.
All right, we're going to take our first break. We're going to come back. We're going to get to some player evaluations. The first time we're going to throw at you guys is going to be Tyron Smith. I want to hear what you guys have to say about him and how he performed in this first game. We'll talk about it when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Cowboys fans, after that move, we've just coined the term Rowdy Replay. Let's roll back the tape.
Okay, there's our mascot Rowdy cheering on the boys. And now he's on his phone, on his Bank of America mobile banking app?
Staying on top of his finances with his virtual financial assistant, Erica.
Bank of America's digital tools are so impressive. Cowboys fans just can't stop banking. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/can't stop banking.
Erica is only available in the English language. You must download the latest version of the mobile banking app, only available on select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. Member FDIC.
Welcome back into Dear Doctor, the show where I answer life's questions with an ice-cold can of Dr. Pepper. Sheila, let's hear from our next caller, would you?
Dear Doctor, my friend supported me during a tough time. But what's the right gift that says, thanks for being a shoulder to cry on?
Okay, this one's easy. I say give her a delicious Dr. Pepper. Nothing says, thanks, girl, better than a one-of-a-kind soda. Yes, any Dr. Pepper flavor will do. Now, just a reminder that I don't need to be a real doctor to know that Dr. Pepper is the one you deserve.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit unitedagandturf.com to find a location near you.
Back to the break.
Do you eat, sleep, and breathe Dallas Cowboys football? Tell us how you spice up the game for a chance to be named the 2023 Cowboys Fan of the Year, presented by Captain Morgan, and win exclusive prizes, plus a trip to Super Bowl 58. Nominate yourself, you selfish guy, you, or another today at dallascowboys.com/fan of the year.
Welcome back. It is the second segment of the break, brought to you by blockchain.com. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to throw out a name. In some instances, I may throw out multiple names because they kind of are groups of people.
Yeah.
But I'm going to throw out a name, and then I want you guys to just riff a little bit. Tell me what you saw. I assume you've had a chance to kind of digest and then watch the film and get an idea of these guys. But let's start first with Tyron Smith. Thoughts?
Felt like that Tyron Smith played well in this game. I was really worried about the potential of him and Thibodeau and Ojulari, carrying him up the field. Maybe he's not as with the ankle. Was there going to be some problems? No, the physicality was good. The set was good. The strength he plays. The couple of times he got into space when they were able to get the ball to the edge. He worked well inside with Adoga. Adoga had moments where I thought he was really, really good. So the left side, where you thought there might have been a little liability over there, really played a nice game. And I was expecting Thibodeau to try and move Tyron a little bit, but Tyron wasn't having any of that. So it felt like a good start to his season.
He definitely played some great football. And like Brian said, a lot of us were wondering, not if he would play, because we were confident he would, but, was he operating on a bad wheel with that ankle sprain and going up against Ojulari and Thibodeau? How would he fare? And he fared extremely well. 62 pass blocking reps, 0 pressures allowed for Tyron Smith. And that's in the passing game, which is just stellar football. And then you look at what he was able to do as far as affect the run game. Talk about Kevontae Turpin off the left end. Talk about Tony Pollard being able to operate on that side of the ball. So for me, Tyron Smith looked every bit prime Tyron Smith. And as long as he remains healthy, the Cowboys should feel fantastic at that left tackle position.
If they can get Tyler back, that's even better.
Yeah.
Although Adoga, as you mentioned,
Adoga
had a good game.
No, Adoga was, what I learned is Adoga is a better guard prospect than he is a tackle prospect. And I know there's a lot of people saying, well, you guys owe Adoga an apology. No, we owe Adoga what we saw. And in training camp, he was not good as an offensive tackle. And the Cowboys felt like, okay, well, wait, who are we going to put at guard? Well, let's put Adoga at guard. Mm-hmm. Jerry Jones talked about it in the pregame show. And Mike McCarthy did it with us on 105.3 The Fan before the game about the versatility of some of his offensive linemen. The Cowboys always believe in to be able to cross-train. And if a guy could play tackle, he could play guard, maybe he can play center. So, those are the kinds of things that you need to see. He obviously, to me, is a better guard than he is a tackle prospect.
And like Brian said, at the end of the day, you are what you show. And in training camp, he didn't show as much of anything, and then he had the injury late in training camp. But we sat on the same panel and we said that we hope he goes out and he shows something different against the Giants. And guess what? He did. And the next morning, we made sure we gave him his roses. So
next name, Leighton Vander Esch.
I'll tell you what, I liked watching Leighton Vander Esch play in this game because to me, when the confidence that he plays with, and you could tell the guys around him play with the confidence. I felt like that Vander Esch, the way he's able to get to the ball, the way he's able to play and help in coverage, you watch him and with the way the pressure was, the drops and things like that. Daniel Jones's eye level was down anyway. He was looking at the rush. But with Vander Esch, I didn't feel like there was any gaps or anything like that. The crossing stuff they handled, anything that was dealt in the middle of the field, anything in the running game, he stepped up. The first series, I felt like that the scheme-wise, the Giants had done some things to them, came off the ball a little bit better, got into those guys a little bit more than probably that they were ready for. But as the game wore on, Leighton did a better job of playing with his hands, getting off blocks, and then getting to where he needed to be.
I love what I saw from LVE. He was my marquee matchup against Saquon Barkley going into this game. I said that he was going to be paramount, he and Damone Clark, and playing sideline to sideline and containing Saquon Barkley. And he helped do just that. And he finished the night with 6 meaningful tackles, because not every tackle is meaningful, but all of his were. Third most on the team, behind only J-Ron Kearse and Marquise Bell. The safety unit had themselves a day as well. But what I also saw from Leighton Vander Esch was versatility, because this is something that I pointed out over the course of OTAs, minicamp, and training camp. At one point, Dan Quinn deployed a scheme that had Micah Parsons at zero tech, and you had LVE rushing off the edge. Now, that play almost worked, if not for Jones's mobility, break and contain on his left side, which is the Cowboys' right side. But you saw Leighton Vander Esch flying all over the field. You saw his versatility. I love what he put on film this past Sunday. Yeah,
one thing to note, you were talking about what they did in that first series. Jerry talked about it this morning on his radio show and said he thinks that they actually got taken off guard a little bit because they used some different blocking schemes than what they'd shown before on tape, but they made adjustments.
Adaptations.
And I do think that the Giants went away from the run. I also think the Cowboys made some adjustments. You combine those two things, and it worked out well for the Cowboys, right?
Boa constrictor.
Yeah. All right, next name. Actually, this is a guy that played a little bit more than we've been used to seeing him play, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. KaVontae Turpin.
You know what? It goes back to OTAs and minicamps where you saw him get more opportunity, and I don't know if that had to do with some of the injuries or some of the what was going on in OTAs with the wide receivers, or they were just holding guys out. But you did actually see him in some of the scheme packages, and good for the Cowboys, the offensive staff, for trying to figure out ways to get their players on the field. And with Turpin, one of the ones that was a little bit, I wouldn't call it shocking, but to have him line up as a single back and then hand him the football and trying to attack that way, I think showed some creativity on the offensive staff. But this is something that when you watch him play, you see that ability to make people miss the wiggle. Sometimes he'll run to darkness, which is crazy. He'll find right into somebody. But overall,
he's running faster than you really.
Yeah, but it's like he's going
feet moving faster than his brain.
Well, that's the thing about it. I always equate it to, like, if you've ever seen a Doberman run, its front legs go over here and its back legs go over here. And Turpin's a little bit like that. But what you saw from him is the creativity to get him involved in the game. Not only throw him the football, but hand him the football. Just a quick, initial burst to try and let's get 5, 6, 7 yards before the defense really has a chance to react. I like the versatility. I like how they used him in this past game.
Yeah, if you look at last season, Turpin comes in off of an MVP season with the USFL, jumps right into Cowboys training camp.
A lot of football.
And then on top of that, the Cowboys did show the willingness to utilize him on offense in training camp before saying, regular season, you're our ace returner, and we're not using CeeDee Lamb as a returner anymore, rightfully so. We have to protect you in workload management, again, coming off of that USFL season. Now, fresh, rested, battery fully recharged, and credit to KaVontae Turpin, because I asked Mike McCarthy, what would be the difference outside of the workload management that could help KaVontae Turpin be utilized in this offense this year. And he said he has to dive into the playbook. That's exactly what KaVontae has done over these past several weeks, several months. And now he has the coaching staff confident in the fact that he understands his assignments and his reads and things like that. So then you see week one, they wasted no time getting KaVontae involved. We were all wondering, what does Deuce Vaughn look like in week one? How many reps will he get? How many touches will he get? Well, KaVontae Turpin has shown that in that head-to-head battle to be that that change of pace back, so to speak, with Deuce Vaughn. He has the lead. 3 carries, 14 yards, 4.7 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. That's good stuff. On 3 targets, he caught 2 of them, 11 yards. That's 5.5 per carry, per catch. Great start. So let's see how the Cowboys start to mix him in more and how they balance that with Deuce Vaughn. But from a Kevontae Turpin standpoint, and anyone who wanted to see him involved in the offense, you got to love what that start looked like.
Hold on to that ball, bro.
Yeah, right.
Hold on to that ball.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, I started to think as I was watching them play and watching Kevontae Turpin be involved in the offense, I was just thinking to myself, I wonder what would have happened 3 years ago if Mike McCarthy was coordinating the offense and you had a Zeke that was doing the things Zeke was doing back then, and you got a guy like Pollard who would be the consummate gadget player, right? And it made me just because, you know, the joke always was for all of us, like, yeah, we'll believe it when we see it that they'll get Pollard more involved, doing more things than just, you know, kind of being the backup to Zeke. I just wonder how much more he would have been involved and how they could have used him in this offense, because I'm looking at Turpin and I'm like, they found a role for a guy that just has immense talent. And that's the key. Like, you find the talent in your guys, you start. It's what Dan Quinn is so great at. Right. He finds what's your talent, and then I'm going to exploit that. I'm just going to do all kinds of stuff to get you in your environment to do what you do best, and we're going to work it all together to where the defense is just a
Well, the Cowboys have been looking for a Lance Dunbar since Lance Dunbar, and especially being that Lance Dunbar didn't turn into what they wanted him to be. But they've been looking for that shifty, kind of gadgety guy. And maybe Turpin turns into that, and maybe Vaughn does as well, and maybe it's a two-headed, you know, attack as far as that particular role. But, yeah, I think they do a phenomenal job at saying, let's not try to make you into what we want you to be. Let's acknowledge what you are and make you great at what you are. So, yeah, they're doing great.
Yeah, if you really want to make Jerry Jones mad, ask him if he felt like did he waste Pollard's career so far. Make him mad. I asked him that question one time.
He got a little hot?
Yeah, a little hot. It's okay. But that's what you have to do. You have to figure these things out.
Yeah.
You know, you give the great example, Dan Quinn. Every guy on defense had a role. Everybody had a role in that victory the other night, the way they played. You know, you saw different guys, different opportunities. You know, tell me about opening day if you would have thought that Wanye Thomas was going to be in the starting lineup. Tell me if you thought Bell was going to play as a linebacker. Now, maybe that's because of Overshone in his situation. Yes. I was worried that they were going to lose the Overshone package that they had in mind. But it looks like they've got a couple of guys that could potentially do what they want to do with Overshone being gone.
And let's not forget, like, the reason why they're out there also is because your starter isn't there. When he's back, he's going to do Donovan Wilson type things. So I just love how Dan Quinn just coordinates this thing. He just knows how to put guys in position and have them make plays. And that's so much about
it's creative group.
It's just about the coordinator just understanding his talent.
And scouts really appreciate finding players for a guy like Dan Quinn, and not to say they don't appreciate finding players for offensive coaches too. But if you're on the road and all of a sudden you're sitting there at Florida A&M and you see a player and you're thinking, Dan can use this guy as a linebacker. Dan could use this guy as one of those safety linebacker guys. You know, now all of a sudden you're like, hey Dan, I saw a kid in Tallahassee that does this or does that. And it just makes it as a scout, it opens you up to other opportunities to find players because coaches use the players the way they do.
The defensive side of the ball is just magnificent at the primary 3 phases of winning on a player development standpoint. So it's scouting slash drafting, right, coaching and development, and then scheming these guys and where they need to be and helping them be in positions to win. And at all 3 of those levels, I mean, talking about Al Harris and Joe Witt and just the defensive coaching staff. The scouts have been phenomenal. The assistant coaches and position coaches have been phenomenal. And, of course, Dan Quinn, he's going to Dan Quinn.
Well, Dan takes an active role in that. Dan's out there shoulder to shoulder with the scouts, and not nothing against Mike McCarthy. Mike does his job with personnel stuff, but Dan's willing to roll up his sleeves and get out there with the scouts too.
I think Dan wants to lace him up.
53 years old yesterday,
I think
right?
Dan wants
Happy
to
birthday!
Happy belated birthday to Dan Quinn.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take our final break. We will come back, and we'll get into a little lab coat with no C. We'll do that when we come back. DallasCowboys.com radio.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Don't put off getting your oil change, Dallas. Take 5 Oil Change, a proud partner of the Cowboys, is faster than you think. There's no appointment needed and no waiting room. Yep, you heard that correctly. Take 5 is so fast, you don't even have to get out of your car. You can take advantage of Take 5's fast, friendly, and simple service at any of their locations across the Dallas area. And remember, at Take 5, you stay in your car because they're faster than you think. Take 5, the official oil change of the Dallas Cowboys.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag and Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag and Turf, the official Ag and Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
Back to the break.
Let's play in this game. There's a position for everybody, no matter who you are. Flag is your chance to run, throw, jump, and fly. This is your chance to get involved in the action and join the flag football movement. Learn more and find a league at NFLflag.com.
Welcome back. Final segment of the break, live from the SWBC Mortgage Studios at the Star. Let's get into a little lab coat with no C. What you got?
Bring me in, Beamer.
Yes, science.
All right, so Lab Koat, ladies and gentlemen, weekly segment where I reach into the proverbial lab coat, bring out 1 or 2 items that the Cowboys should focus on, be it within themselves or with the upcoming opponent. And now that, once Aaron Rodgers went down, I immediately start digging into Zach Wilson, and 2 numbers poke their head out. So let's talk about it. Play action. So the first number is 39. Second number is going to be 25. We'll get to that in a second. 39. 39% of Zach Wilson's dropbacks are on a play action. But here's what makes that more intriguing. Only 21% of his total career yards are accounted for on successful play action plays. I say all of that to say, I was asked this morning on The Fan, am I worried about Garrett Wilson? Not entirely, because of the Cowboys secondary. Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook. Breece Hall, Dalvin Cook. If you stop Breece Hall, who was explosive against the Bills, and Dalvin Cook is still Dalvin Cook, to say the least, right?
Yeah. 10 carries, 127 yards.
Yes, then you will negate the play action, period, for Salah and Zach Wilson, and that's taking out 40% of their expected play calls for that young man, which then makes it that much easier to tee off on him as a pass rusher. Next number, 25. Zach Wilson in his career with the Jets and their offensive line, as we saw last night, is still not great, particularly at the edges. 25% of his throws when under duress are categorized as bad throws. This is a stat I found on Pro Football Reference. Shout out to those guys. They do great work. And bad throws are excluding spikes and throwaways. So just pure drop back throws, which includes play action as well. If he's under duress, Zach Wilson throws a bad ball once out of every 4 attempts. The Cowboys will get opportunities to take the ball away. Now, some of those, this is just kind of an aside. Dak Prescott, bad throws, 13.2%. for his career. Now, this is since 2018 when they started tracking the stat. Aaron Rodgers, 17.48% since 2018. So those two are on a different planet, but when you use that contextually up against that 25%, which is technically 24.9 for Zach Wilson, shut down Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook, which eliminates the play action, shrinks the playbook for Zach Wilson quite a bit, and then get him under pressure situations, and he will throw you a bad ball once out of every 4 times. And when he does, question is, are you going to take that ball away?
Yeah, I think that, to me, and those are all great numbers and great ideas, the thing that I'm looking at with Zach Wilson is
legs.
No, different offensive coordinator from what we've seen last year with him. I think, and this is where maybe there's a little advantage for the Cowboys of Mike McCarthy's understanding of Nathaniel Hackett. And maybe they can have a little bit clearer. Mike could help Dan and them understand what Nathaniel might be thinking as a play caller. Of all the numbers that you just said, that just tells me right there, I don't need Zach Wilson throwing the ball very much. So I'm going to try and figure out ways to help him. I'm going to try and make as simple throws that I can. I'm going to try and make the defense look as easy as I can. Because what's going to happen is if this turns into a passing game, everything you just said, Patrick, is absolutely going to happen. There's going to be bad passes. There's going to be turnovers. There's going to be awful football for the Jets. I think Nathaniel Hackett now understands. I think having the training camp with Zach Wilson, he kind of understands now what he can and cannot do. And there's a lot of cannot do. So how do you navigate that? How do you find a way? And to me, it's Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook is what it is. And the one thing the Cowboys showed that first drive, that there could be some problems stopping the run. Even if you have a compromised offensive line, and this is not a very good offensive line. I don't think it's as weak as what we saw with the Giants and what they did, but there's some issues there. To me, it's all about Nathaniel Hackett figuring out things for Zach Wilson, because all those numbers will play if they sit there and say, okay, we're just going to turn into a team that's going to try and pass the ball here. So this team now, to me, turns into run first, play great defense. Run first, play great defense.
And to that point, and I will turn into Brian Broaddus on this one, mobility for the quarterback. Yeah. Right. So the mobility of Daniel Jones was a concern, rightfully so, and you saw it play out over the first 3 quarters of that opening drive against the Giants. Zach Wilson is actually slightly more mobile. Zach Wilson has 30 scrambles in his 2-year career, and he's averaging 9 yards per scramble. Daniel impressive. Jones is averaging 7.9. So while the mobility is equivalent, Zach Wilson is actually slightly better at his escapability. Might go to athleticism, might go to youth, whatever the case may be. The good news is the Cowboys showed, with the assistance of the Giants changing up their play calling, that they can contain that for the course of 4 quarters. But when we're talking about the Jets going run first, which I agree, I believe they will, that's going to be a part of their run first dynamic.
I will throw one monkey wrench in that first stat you threw out there. The one thing that can complicate that a little bit is that Garrett Wilson is a bad ball catcher. As we saw last night in that game,
no question.
That was not a great throw.
Yeah.
That was great coverage.
It was.
He literally was just like, give me that. And he took it, and it's a touchdown, right?
Good.
That's the part that I think can be a little bit of a challenge. Again, when I was talking earlier in the show, and we were talking about the Jets, I'm like, their defense is so good. Their defense can keep you in games, and all it takes is that kind of moment where Garrett Wilson makes a bad ball throw look like a great throw and turns it into a touchdown, and now you're in a ball game.
That's fair.
And now you end up losing to a team that you probably should beat, but because their defense is so good and keeps them in the game, all they need is that one moment when he can catch that bad ball and turn it into something great.
100% accurate. And I will say this, in real time when Garrett Wilson made that catch, and I even tweeted, I was like, man, what a catch. Respect, because that was ridiculous. If you go back and you look at the play, I wonder if that's a PBU for a guy like Gilmore, who rides the hip effectively. Because if you look at the spacing in that corner of that pylon, I think that's a play that Gilmore has a shot on. I think that's a play that Trevon Diggs has a shot on. So that would be Garrett Wilson's ability to catch bad throws versus the ability of Trevon Diggs and Stephon Gilmore to stay on the hip of guys like Garrett Wilson, particularly in short yardage situations where there's not a lot of space for that receiver to operate. So I'm looking forward to that. I believe that that's the case. Yeah, absolutely. But if out of 16 attempts, if there are 4 bad throws, not all of those throws are going to Garrett Wilson. Somebody else is going to get targeted, and it's going to be a bad throw who is not a bad throw catcher like Garrett Wilson is. So the opportunities will be there.
Yeah, but I do think Garrett Wilson will be a problem. And we'll get into that
a
little
be, very well.
As we start getting into the shows. I think, what are we doing tomorrow?
Tomorrow's their defense.
We'll do a little bit of defense, and then we'll do offense on Thursday. But when we start talking about that, I think that's going to be a big part of it, is that those running backs will be huge, obviously. Yeah. But Garrett Wilson's a guy he can be a problem for you. And even with a quarterback that doesn't, he reminds me of I'm trying to think of my guy that used to be with the Texans. That
Hopkins?
Was with Arizona. Hopkins.
Oh, I was going to
Hopkins
say
was the same kind
now.
of player. Yeah, he's a Tennessee now. Same kind of guy. He had bad quarterbacks throughout the vast majority of his career. But you know what he did every year? Still caught a bunch of those
Scared
balls.
me for a second because my brain went to Andre Johnson. I was like, no.
I wouldn't go back that far. No, he had
Webster slaughtered.
Yeah, okay.
Right. But no, I mean that's what I'm starting to get a little vibe of Garrett Wilson. He's that kind of guy that doesn't matter who you put back there, quarterback, he's gonna make some plays.
Yeah.
And he's gonna make his fair share of plays. And you got to be concerned about
They're going to try and protect this quarterback for sure. They're going to try and ease him in, and they understand if it turns into a passing game, that's Dallas's advantage right there. If I'm Robert Saleh, I'm going to die on the hill of trying to run the ball.
No doubt.
I'm going to try because I know if I drop back and throw the ball a bunch,
you're done.
Just like the other New York team, I'm going to look just as bad.
You're done.
And you got two great running backs.
Yeah.
Why not? Like
Why not?
They're set up for success running the ball because they got those two backs they got.
Yeah, and Delvin Cook, although he hasn't been successful against the Dan Quinn regime, I mean, it's a team game. If you go back and you look at what Delvin Cook was able to do as far as statistically, he's put up solid numbers against the Cowboys. Now, obviously, it was in the Vikings outfit with the Vikings offensive line. Not that they're world beaters, but, they're, arguably better than most.
They got good skill there.
Yeah,
they got some skill players.
So
And when he's the second.
Yeah, and he's the second.
He's the second.
He's the second.
Yeah,
so
I mean, Breece Hall is he's a beast.
They can wear you down with that. We'll get into that more for Thursday for sure.
Stops the run.
Appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll get into more talk on Cowboys versus Jets. Till then, for Brian Broaddus, Patrick Walker, I'm Derek Eagleton. This has been The Break live on DallasCowboys.com radio.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!